Hello and welcome to the Playbook XI podcast, how to the Renegades versus the Heat and the Sixers versus the Strikers Big Bash fixtures. We're here to provide some expert Dream 11 advice fresh off Aussie soil. We've got the local knowledge for the Big Bash 2023-2024 tournament. My name is Tim Williams. I like to think of myself as a fancy cricket expert down in Australia. Even better, though, is the bloke with me today, my co-host for today's show. He's a former Cricket Australia commentator, spent plenty of time working with the Sydney Sixers, the men in magenta. Max Bryden. Maxie, how are you, mate?
G'day, Tim. Doing well. Mate, this is the best time of year when we got Big Bash on our screens every single night of the week, and I'm really looking forward to diving in and talking more about it with you.
Mate, we spend our lives watching cricket, previewing the Big Bash. We play all the fancy versions of the game down here. We love our Dream 11 as well, and we thought, why not get involved in a bit of the content there? We see all the content going up on YouTube and podcasting, and we thought, you know what, we've got the Aussie, the local knowledge, so we're going to have a crack at it ourselves. Our other member of our panel who isn't on today's show, Mr. Simon Doull, former New Zealand Test cricket star, world-renowned commentator on the IPL, the World Cup, just about everything. Dooley will also be on board for later episodes to hopefully find you a few winners in Dream 11 Big Bash this season. Now, Maxie, let's get straight into it. As mentioned, we are coming across YouTube. We will be on podcasting channels as well, Spotify, Apple, wherever you do listen to your podcast. Just look up Playbook 11 podcast and that will pop up. Let's get into it. First up, mate, is the Renegades versus the Heat. Now, what is your predicted side for the Renegades to start off?
Yeah, the home team, their first game underneath the roof at Marvel Stadium. Does look like there was a little bit of weather around, so the roof could be closed as well for that game. And running through the lineup, opening the batting, it's going to be Joe Clark and Quinton de Kock, the two internationals. At number 3, we're expecting that it's going to remain Jake Fraser-McGurk after his standout performance to start the tournament, although we could see Sean Marsh slot back into the side as well at some point. The middle order is going to be made up of Aaron Finch, Nick Maddinson. John O'Wells could get squeezed as well if we do see Sean Marsh return to the side. And getting into the bowlers, number 7, Will Sutherland. What a fantastic start to the tournament he's had. And he'll be backed up by Tom Rogers, Adam Zampa, Kane Richardson, and the Afghan Mujib ul Rahman. Pretty settled squad, 5 bowling options with Nick Maddinson, the 6th all-rounder, but that's how the Melbourne Renegades are going to line up.
Yeah, love that. Will Sutherland, as you said, from that opening fixture for the Renegades, from the match that wasn't abandoned this campaign, he was the absolute starring role for Dream 11, enormous with the bat, bowling his 4 overs, not bowling at the death late on, but he's still very, very effective in those middle overs. And the other name you mentioned there, Jake Fraser-McGurk, the young gun from Australia, he's just an absolute supreme talent, and he's going to decide a lot of Dream 11 contest this season, I believe, because there will be a bit of hit or miss, but I think there's going to be a lot more hit than there is going to be miss. Mate, what have you got for the Brisbane Heat?
Brisbane Heat's side has changed a little bit, and there's a couple of potential injuries in the squad. Opening the batting will be firstly Colin Munro, the New Zealand international. Josh Brown will be his preferred partner, but if he's not fit, then we could see Jack Wood, the rookie, come in to open the batting as well. Behind him is going to be Matt Renshaw. At number 4, we're likely to see either Nathan McSweeney or Sam Billings. It'll just be whether or not how the team lines up. Down at number 6, we'll see Paul Walter, the English all-rounder, who bowled his 4 overs in his last match for the Brisbane Heat and took 3 for down at Monaco Oval, bowled fantastically well. At number 7, Michael Nessa, Xavier Bartlett behind him, and then we're into the spinners. It'll be Mitch Wepson, Kuhneman, and then Spencer Johnson, who just went for a lot of money in the IPL auction overnight, should be the number 11 in that team. So there's a couple of potential changes to that middle order just based on some injuries to Josh Brown and another middle order player who was off with injury in that last game at Monaco Oval. The names just slipped my mind. So we could see Max Bryden, we could see Jimmy Pearson, but we do know that in Dream 11, middle order players who don't bowl, not necessarily our favourite players to pick. So I probably wouldn't say they have too much of an impact on picking your Dream 11 team.
Yeah, the recent IPL auction for 2024, Spencer Johnson, the absolute, I won't say standout from Australia, but certainly surprise packet after only debuting in the BBL quite recently in recent years. And obviously, a Stark going absolutely bonkers, breaking the IPL auction record. Pat Cummins, he had held that record for all of about 25 minutes before Starkey, his fellow paceman, his fellow countryman, came in over the top of him. So, congrats to the Aussie boys there, mate. Now, one impact that we like to think we might be able to add a lot of value to for our Indian listeners out there picking their Dream 11 teams is the knowledge of the local grounds. You know, the grounds, whether they're going to where they're a little bit patchy, there's going to be a lot of wickets, a lot of runs. You know, we can look at stats, we can look at all those sorts of things, but have a little bit of local knowledge about what to expect on all of the decks. This first fixture coming from Marvel Stadium in Melbourne. What can we traditionally expect from Marvel?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I feel that Marvel's reputation for a number of years was a bit of a spinner's paradise, and it was quite sort of a bit of a dicey wicket that was offering a lot of chances to the bowlers. But really, since 2018-19, a season where the average score combined for both innings was only 267, it hasn't really been the case, and it's actually been one of the most consistent grounds in all of Australia. So for the last 4 years, the average score combined for both innings has been between 324 and 315 runs, with the average amount of sixes 11.4, 11.2, 11.8, and last year 12.7 per match. So it's been a really nice place for the batters, with an average score of about 170 in the first inning. So it is a place where you can score. It's always had short square boundaries, and I think a batter like Jake Fraser McGurk is going to really, really like that. So it's a place that's got something in it really for everyone, and really become a place that's pretty good to watch your cricket at.
Love that, mate. We'll start with off the back of that bit of analysis around generally being a pretty batter friendly deck. An international superstar in Quinton de Kock comes down to the Big Bash for his first campaign in the competition. He starts very obviously expensive at 9 crore to start the tournament and for this contest. Now, historically, we've seen absolute superstars of cricket come down to the Big Bash and struggle initially, I should say. That is the batsmen, not so much the bowlers. They can find their feet and understand the grounds pretty quickly. But for batsmen, we've seen over these Darwood Milan, I should say, AB de Villiers, lots of really highly credentialed players come down and not necessarily set the ground running. Quinton de Kock is going to be very highly selected, despite the information around the good ground. He's a player that I'll be looking to go against and not picking my side. I understand the risk in that, but due to the high selection, we know that in Dream 11, these are the ones that can make or break it, and I'm happy to go against him.
Yeah, it really does feel like Quinton de Kock is going to be one of those make or break players for people in picking their Dream 11 team. What I do like about him is that he's going to have the gloves on for the Renegades. Joe Clark will be out in the field. We do know that the ball can swing quite a lot early in Melbourne. If they have the roof closed as well, we often see a number of catches behind the wickets, which could make Quinton a really, really nice pick. Personally, though, he's going to come at a premium cost, and there could be other better options in there. I think what I really like about Quinton de Kock is that so much of his international experience overseas has been in places like India, where the wickets are pretty flat, the boundaries are pretty short, and his record over there is really, really strong. So personally, I'm not brave enough to go against him, but it looks like that's our first disagreement for this season.
Mate, the first two premium players that I'm going to be paying up every cent for, and they do come in cheaper than de Kock, are Michael Nisa and Will Sutherland, both players with just outstanding roles for Dream 11. The way Nisa has batted in the past 12 months, he's certainly in genuine all-rounder category if he wasn't already. Will Sutherland, we saw him blast 50-odd in the opening game for the Renegades. Nisa, one of the best bowlers in the competition. They're both straight into my team, and I won't even flinch at that one.
Yeah, look, I think it's a pretty safe approach. I would say that the roles slightly differ in the sense that Michael Nisa is going to be taking two of the overs in the power play up front, where while we can see wickets fall, it does also likely lead to a blowout in his economy rate. And whereas Will Sutherland bowling in the middle overs, he's much more likely to go in an economy closer to sort of 7 or 8 versus potentially 10 plus for Michael Neser. Having said that, though, I think Will Sutherland's got a lot of experience playing at this ground. It's been his home ground for a number of seasons, and his form there with both bat and ball has been pretty solid. So I think just based on how he's gone so far in this tournament, he has to be a pick in your team. Michael Neser, I think one thing I would just say on him is that if Brisbane are forced to bowl second, so just say that the Melbourne Renegades send them in to bat, then Neser for me becomes less of an appealing option. Just knowing that unless Brisbane can set a really, really big first score that the Melbourne Renegades are going to have to attack to go after, would always prefer bowlers bowling death in the first innings of the game.
Yeah, very valid, mate. Taken on board. That being said, Michael Neser, he'll be in my team without a shadow of a doubt. Two other key players in English internationals, Sam Billings and Joe Clark. Also players that I'm tempted to leave out at this stage. I know you mentioned about the deck being pretty good down at Marvel. You have to select a couple of batsmen there somewhere. Billings has been batting at anywhere from number 4 to 5 for the Heat, which is very much concerning from a Dream 11 perspective. Joe Clark, one that I'm probably a little bit keener on at this stage. How are you feeling?
I would definitely go Clark over Billings, knowing that Billings is probably going to be 5 behind McSweeney and Renshaw in the middle over. Really puts a line through him for me. There's always that chance that he can come out later in the innings and hit a few away, but even just getting to that 10-ball bonus isn't guaranteed. We saw that last night for the Adelaide Strikers, Adam Hose. He won the match off his bat, 28, but he only faced 8 deliveries, so he sort of wasn't eligible for that bonus. So for that reason, I'd always opt for Joe Clark, particularly just given his form over the last few seasons. He's played a fair few games at Marvel and in Victoria as well. So I'd definitely have him over Billings.
Yeah, at the time of recording as well, Billings is selected by 71% of teams at 8 crore. You can get Joe Clark in just 13% of teams as it stands for a little bit cheaper at 7.5 crore. Colin Munro currently in 87% of teams, 7.5 crore to start the tournament. Again, this is absolutely no knock on Colin Munro because he was the standout player in the opening fixtures for the Heat and albeit across the entire tournament essentially, but at 87% ownership for a player that is batting only, if he can snick one off early and get out, well, this is going to lead you a long way to winning a Dream 11 contest.
Yeah, Colin Munro is one player that I'd definitely be happy to go against because on reflection, now that we've seen a few games of this year's tournament, the two teams that he was up against, the Melbourne Stars and the Sydney Thunder, it's very clear that those two will be likely battling for the wooden spoon this season. Their bowling attacks are significantly weaker than a lot of teams. And I think that the Melbourne Renegades, with their high-quality spin in Adam Zampa and Majib, could really trouble Colin Munro. You can just sort of see Chris Green gave Colin Munro a little bit of trouble in that last game in Monaco. And Majib's certainly an upgrade on what Greeny can bring to the table. So I think Munro is one that you can go against for sure.
There's 4 major spin options in this game from the teams that we have expected to get named. Adam Zamp currently in 37% of teams at 9 crore. Mujib and the Afghani star in just 21% of teams at 8 crore. We also have Matt Kuhneman, 32% of teams at 6.5 crore. And again, another star of the opening fixtures for the Heat, Mitch Swepson, currently in 77% of teams at 7.5 crore. Who stands out here for you, mate?
I think from a value perspective, Majib, the other thing
Great.
that the Brisbane Heat have got is 3 left-handers within that top 6 as well. So Colin Munro, Matt Renshaw, and even big, tall Paul Walter, they're all going to have to they're all left-handers that I know Majib will really enjoy bowling to. His record as well at Marvel Stadium is probably one of the best out of all the grounds that he bowls at around the country as well. So I think he just presents something different and a value option that could do really well tonight. The other guy who's just looked fantastic all season is Mitchell Swepson. Even though I think he's probably one of the cheaper players, his form so far has been really good. He's passed the eye test. Looks to have discovered a bit of a slider this season. If there's anything in the pitch for the spinners at Marvel, I think he could be a real star.
Yeah, you will be paying point 0.5 more for, say, Mujib over Swepson. Adam Zampa said only about 37%. I love the economy rate bonus and the safety of Mujib in this one. Probably not as big a wicket taking option as the others, but we know he can. He's taken a 5 wicket haul in the BBL before. So I do like Mujib in this one. Always traditionally very, very economical. Mate, what about captain and vice captain for this fixture? Who are the two players on your mind?
Yeah, in such a big game, two pretty hot teams this year that we do expect to be in the top four. I think if the Melbourne Renegades bowl first, I really like the idea of Will Sutherland. I think that just his involvement in the game, he feels in hot spots. He's going to bowl his 4 overs. He'll be elevated in the batting order if they need quick runs late as well. So I think he's a good chance to face his 10 balls. And he's just in fantastic form. So for pure involvement, I just really like what he can bring to the table. The other guy who I don't mind is Michael Nisa. Definitely prefer him if the Brisbane Heat get to bowl first. But again, just for his involvement in the game, I think he could offer something really, really special. There's a little bit of a voice in the back of my head that says, why not Paul Walter, given how well he bowled in the last game for the Brisbane Heat, just batting one position higher than Michael Nisa as well. I don't know if I'm bold or brave enough to do it as well, but surely someone out there could have a crack and could be a nice point of difference. What are you thinking, Tim?
Yeah, you're not bold, you're not brave, you're just stupid, mate. I will not be going with Paulie Walter as my captain. I'll be playing the straight bat, and I'm thinking of going around Will Sutherland and Michael Nisa as well, leaning at this stage around Will Sutherland, hoping just that economy rate bonus is a little bit better than Nisa, bowling those middle overs. And if you can jag a couple of wickets in the meantime, I'm happy to go with Will Sutherland as well. Mate, let's get stuck into game two of the round, the Sydney Sixers versus the Adelaide Strikers. Game two of our previews, I should say, not of the round. The Sydney Cricket Ground will host this one, a ground known very well to yourself and I. We both live nearby in Sydney. So at the Sydney Sixers, again, you've spent plenty of time in and around this squad. You know them as good as anyone, just about say in the country, give or take probably the players and the current coaching staff themselves. How do you see them lining up?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. A really settled squad again, and I think that the batting lineup more or less picks itself this year. So at the top of the order will be Josh Philippe and James Vince. At number 3, we saw Dan Hughes, who was man of the match in their last game against the Hobart Hurricanes. At 4, the skipper Moses Enriquez, who's rolled the arm over this year, which has been very exciting for owners. At 5, Jordan Silk. 6, Tom Curran. Number 7, Jack Edwards. 8, Sean Abbott, who'll be returned to the side after some leave last week. Ben Dorshus will be in there as well. And then the final bowling spots that we'll see within this team are likely to fall to Stephen O'Keefe. And then I'm not sure. How many players was that? And the final 2 positions in the team will go to Jackson Bird and Stephen O'Keefe. It's a really interesting and settled bowling unit. They've got 6 or 7 genuine options this year, which is interesting. But I also think it allows them to really stick to their strengths. And you'll see a guy like Jackson Bird potentially only bowl 2 overs. But he's a really good chance as well of power play wickets up front, which can win you the match. So that's how the Sydney Sixers will line up.
And mate, the big impact here is, of course, on the Sixers' past game with Sean Abbott coming back into the side. We saw a star of the Dream 11 format, of the T20 format, in Tom Curran. He bowled the death with Sean Abbott out, but with Abbott coming back into the team, we will see Curran probably go back to more of those middle overs. He might bowl around the 7th or the 18th over and get one in, but we'll see Abbott go back into that death bowling overs.
Yeah, and I think the Sydney Sixers just have so many options and so many different ways that they can cut it up and make it work. As I was saying, Jackson Bird's a special to open the bowling when the ball's swinging around a little bit. He's got one of the best records in the entire competition for power play wickets. And Stephen O'Keefe isn't far behind him either with his left arm orthodox spin. Sean Abbott's no stranger to open the bowling as well, as is Ben Dorshus. The current role with Abbott, as you said, is interesting because he's not likely to come on within the first 4 overs, which typically means that his first 2 overs are more economical versus wicket taking. But I would still expect him to bowl an over in the surge and either the 19th or the 20th as well. So still should be some wicket taking options or overs for Tom Curran. And as always, I think if the Sydney Sixers are bowling in that first innings, then he has to be in your team.
Mate, I will do the Adelaide Strikers for you as they played last night. Australian time, Matthew Short, 82 off 41, an absolute star. Darcy Short, Chris Lynn, Jake Weatherald, Adam Hose, Jamie Overton, the big Pommy Colt hero, James Basley, Harry Nielsen, Wes Agar, David Payne, and Cameron Boyce, the frontline spinner. Now, we need to probably preface this one by saying, Maxi, between guys like Ben Menenti and Henry Thornton, two very good cricketers in their own right, it'll be all eyes on team list 40 minutes before at the coin toss, because they're coming off a relatively impressive win, chasing down over 200 to win their opening game. There could be changes to this team, but how do you see it planning out?
I think what was really evident from the one over that he bowled last night was that James Bazley's probably a little bit underdone. He hadn't played much cricket coming into the tournament due to a hamstring injury that he picked up for Queensland in the Sheffield Shield. And his one over that he bowled last night was pretty awful. And he got smashed around by Alex Ross in the middle overs from the Sydney Thunder. Having said that, if he's fit, I think he does still retain his space because he does offer the side a lot of balance while he's batting at number 7. But he does seem at this early stage the guy most likely from that bowling attack to lose overs to a Matthew Short at the top of the order.
Mate, let's start at the top in the wicketkeeper slot. Now, Harry Nielsen, you won't be going near. Josh Philippe, selected by a whopping 93%, 8.5 cores. So, pretty hard to pass up. Before we get to that, though, the Sydney Cricket Ground, sorry, mate, what can we expect here?
Yeah, the Sydney Cricket Ground has had one game so far. Looking at statistically at the performance of the ground from last year, you can almost write off a lot of those statistics just due to the weather. For people not in Australia, 12 months ago, last October in New South Wales in 2022, was basically a record amount of rainfall, which impacted the play of the SCG for the entire summer. The grass wasn't growing in October to allowing the pitches to be created in December and January. And in fact, the average amount of runs scored last year was only 268 for an entire game versus an average of 290 the year before. And as well, there was only 7 sixes per game last year at the SCG. Which is one of the lowest of any grounds in the competition, right alongside the MCG, which is sort of different reasons. It's just so big. So I think the ground should play very well. There was 342 runs in the last game and 13 sixes, which was very high. So it should be a game where there's plenty of runs, but plenty of runs as well also means that there's plenty of balls flying up in the air and lots of wickets falling as well. So it should be a pretty nice game and should play pretty well. All I would say, however, is that you mentioned, Tim, we do live in Sydney. Right now, there's a considerable amount of rain. There's a big system that's come in here, and it will definitely play havoc for the curators trying to get up a really quality pitch for this game. It could mean that the pitch gets better throughout the game and the second innings is easier to bat than the first if there's a clear patch and the pitch is dried out, just that because it might just be a little bit wet from this rain that's happening at the moment.
Yeah, the way the weather's going at the moment, there's not going to be a lot of time to dry out the pitch and get those covers off, or in particular to get much sun on it leading into it. So we'll monitor that over the next 24 hours. But the forecast does look quite wet there. I mentioned Josh Philippe in that wicket-keeping slot, very highly owned, but we know how damaging he can be. He was really good in the opening fixtures for the Sixers this season and looks a pretty safe bet there. Mate, in the all-rounder slot, Matt Short, we saw him go bonkers last night, and he also was very kind enough to Dream 11 players to bowl himself as well, and quite regularly. Now, look, probably didn't pan out as we'd entirely hoped. He took an early wicket, but he also went for 43 runs from his 3 overs with an economy of 14.33, which did work against him a little bit. That being said, look, with the form that he's come into the tournament with what he's produced in the first game for the Strikers after their first game washout, I think he's really hard to pass up.
He is hard to pass up, but I would say what's counting against him will be the considerable amount of right-handers within the Sydney Sixers batting lineup, which might lead to more overs to Cameron Boyce as opposed to his off-spin. I think the other thing with Matt Short's batting as well is that he's shown a real appetite to attack left-handers. He loves to pick up length early and swing balls over to the leg side into the stands. But those types of shots also do offer a chance to the fielding side. And there are fewer higher quality left-handers in the entire Big Bash League than Ben Dorshus from the Sydney Sixers. So I think that that's a matchup which is going to go a long way to defining the success of this game. And I've got no doubt the Sydney Sixers will be targeting that as well when they get the opportunity to bowl to him on Friday night.
Yep, some of the best levers in world cricket, that man. Gee, I love watching him bat. His namesake, Darcy Short, after a really lean run of form in recent years, bounced back with a terrific knock to belt out 66 runs off 47 balls, 140 strike rate. Off the back of that, he's currently been selected by 65% of teams at 8.5 crore. Look, at that selection, off the back of an Adelaide Oval deck that was very flat, very batsman friendly, I am very happy to go against Darcy Short. Also in that all-rounder slot, we didn't see him bowl. They do have, obviously since the withdrawal of Rashid Khan, they sort of have lacked probably that strike weapon spinner, hence why we saw Matty Short bowling a little bit, Cameron Boyce. We mentioned Menenti, who could come in any given game. I'll be going against Darcy Short. Do you see it any differently?
No, I think you summarised it well. It was a perfect coming together of conditions last night with a very flat pitch and also just batting in the second innings where the pressure's off a little bit just because you sort of know what you're chasing. It also doesn't hurt that you get to bat along Matt Short, one of the most destructive batters in the entire country, and Chris Lynn just after that. So as well as he did, I think he's a guy that you can go against, particularly because he didn't bowl a single over as well in that match.
Two star Englishmen in Overton and Tommy Curran. Both started 8 crore. Curran currently in 77% of teams, Overton in 20%. Both solid pickups. I will say with Overton, he looked good. He did benefit with a number of catches to his name in that first fixture. I'd be leaning towards Curran over Overton quite comfortably. Curran, 2 opportunities with the bat, 1 not out. I think hit 5 off 3 in the second game for the Sixers, and in the first game, not too many. But he has one of the best roles in Dream 11.
He does. Anytime you can bat as high as number 6 and you're guaranteed to bowl your 4 overs, you have to take a serious consideration into the players. I think the interesting thing about Tom Curran is that we know how well he can bat and he just hasn't shown it yet. But that game where he just explodes, it's only going to be just around the corner. I think the interesting thing about the Adelaide Strikers is that they let the Sydney Thunder, who are a pretty weak batting lineup, score 200 runs in the last game. And yes, while the pitch is flat, they are certainly weaker this year in the bowling department without Rashid Khan in their side. So for me, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the game where Curran was able to get a quick fire 20 or 30 runs down the bottom of the order if he's required. So I think you have to have a look at him. Jamie Overton, on the other hand, he really surprised me with the role that he plays in the last game. A lot of the talk coming into the match was about his batting. He was named at number 6. His record in the English T20 tournament was fantastic as a finisher. His strike rate was over 180, and I think he averaged 45, thanks no doubt to a lot of not outs as well. He's a really, really fantastic player. And if he's going to continue to bowl 3 or 4 overs every game for the Adelaide Strikers, which is a big chance to the way that they line up with Baisley and Boyce, then I think he's a really, really good pickup just because he's in the game.
Max Moises Enriquez is currently in a whopping 87% of teams. I cannot believe it. As you said, it's been a real surprise to see him wind back the clock a little bit and roll the arm over this tournament. He's bowled, I think, 1 over in each fixture. Look, he's a really reliable sort of number 4-5 batsman, but I wouldn't be banking on him to bowl many more than his 1 over, if at all, and a guy that I'm certainly happy to go against at that high selection percentage.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, if you're interested in Moses, you need to assess him as a batter first only. Any overs that he bowls are going to be nice to have because they're certainly not guaranteed within the way that they're lining up. Realistically, he's the 7th bowling option for this side. So he's only going to get a go if conditions are really well suited to his style of bowling. But the way that Jack Edwards bowled the other day down in Tasmania, I think that he's definitely usurped him as the 6th bowler, and I'd expect if there's overs floating around, they'll go to Jack before they go to Moses.
Yeah, there's not too many batsmen that I'm overly keen on in this fixture. I'll be going very heavy and spending a lot of my money in the all-rounder department as well as the bowling department. Mate, on the two bowling attacks, who are the blokes that you'll be looking to add to your squad? I know you're a massive, massive Ben Dwarshuis fan. We saw David Payne come on and bowl some pretty key overs, bowling at the death for the Strikers in their opening fixture. Again, not looking at the washout. A couple of spinning options there. Has been suited to Sydney in the past. Who do you like?
Yeah, I think all of those names that you mentioned are really on the list. And for me, it's all going to be come down to the toss and get to see who's going to be bowling in that first innings. David Payne bowled the big overs for the Adelaide Strikers. And as you could see, the 2 wickets that he picked up in the 20th are a vindication for this principle that you should be trying to get the bowlers who get to bowl first. Him, Ben Dwarshuis are huge options. Dwarshuis just has the golden arm and seems to pick up wickets whenever he has the ball in his hand. The other one you didn't mention is Sean Abbott. He's batting a little bit lower in the order this time. I think he's down at number 8 for the Sydney Sixers, so you can't really count on many runs coming his way, given that he's not likely to face many deliveries. But he's just the leading wicket taker in the history of the competition, and if you can afford him, you should look to get him in your Dream 11 team.
Yeah, there is one that a player worth mentioning very much in the bargain buy category. We do not expect him to play, but if Ben Menenti can squeeze into this lineup, depending how many bowlers and all rounders are selected, look, he'd probably need to come in for Cameron Boyce, but at 6 crore, he's very, very cheap. He can also hit a big ball and is more than capable with the bat. So if he does sneak into this team, he's well worth a look at the price. Mate, what about captains for this fixture for you for your Dream 11 team?
Yeah, it's really hard to go past Tom Curran. I think that his role is the best in the Big Bash. Death bowling, we know, is where we like to call them the party overs. It's where you pick up lots of wickets and you have lots of fun. And his ability to combine that with the opportunity to bat as high as number 6, I think that it just simply doesn't get any better than that. Matt Short as well is potentially one guy who could be better than him if he's continuing to bowl his 4 overs. The Sydney Sixers do present a really tough challenge to him, however, up there with the Perth Scorchers in the best 2 bowling attacks in the entire competition. For me, it might come down to if Tom Curran gets to bowl in the first innings, I'll be looking that way. And Matt Short's probably going to become my vice captain in that case.
Yeah, it'll be Tom Curran for me. Either way, I think the man is a star, made for this format of BBL T20 cricket, made for Dream 11 to put points on the board for his owners. And yeah, it's 77% selection. I'll take that for the 23% that don't own. Maxi, we will wrap that up for our first 2 previews of the BBL Dream 11. We will be back throughout the remainder of the tournament to hopefully find a few winnings for viewers.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks to all the listeners. Hope you got something out of this. And remember to like, subscribe, give us 5 stars as well.
All the good stuff. Cheers, guys, and good luck.